Okay, welcome to the Vickers Tactical YouTube channel. I'm Larry Vickers, and this is my review of the HK VP9 striker-fired 9mm pistol. Now, recently HK sent me the gun, and I got a chance to run it through a couple classes and put a couple hundred rounds through it, and I'm gonna give you my initial impressions. Now, HK has a long history of not only striker-fired handguns with the P7, but they were actually the first major manufacturer to make a polymer frame handgun in the HK VP70Z. This pistol, however, will be compared primarily to two handguns. The Glock 17, which is by far the most popular polymer frame handgun in the world, and also the Walther PPQ, which is a striker-fired gun that Walther brought out a couple years ago that kind of predated this gun, however, was heavily influenced by the HK P30. Now, this particular gun, if you've seen a PPQ and a P30, you've seen essentially what is more or less the VP9. There's a few differences, however. It has the side panels and the backstrap insert like the P30, however, they do not interchange, and they come in the box with large, medium, and small. Mine had medium side panels and backstrap installed out of the box, and I put the smalls on based on my smaller hand. Made a big difference in controllability of the pistol. The magazine release is ambidextrous, and I prefer to activate it with my trigger finger, just like the one on the P30. It also has the groove inside the trigger guard, which bothers a lot of shooters, including myself, on the P30 and the full-size HK45. However, due to the shape of the trigger on the VP9, the internal groove does not bother me and my trigger finger when I'm firing the gun. The VP9 also has a Picatinny Rail up front on the bottom of the frame, which has become commonplace with the more modern HK polymer frame handguns. Has grasping grooves up front, which has now become standard with a lot of the more modern HK pistols. In addition, it uses the HK P30 magazine. It has ambidextrous slide releases, one's here on the left and one on the right, shaped differently. One of the things about them, they're a little bit too low profile for my personal taste. I'd like to see them protrude a little bit more because I'm an old 1911 shooter and I use my support hand thumb to release the slide using the left hand slide release. Also, shooters have to be aware of the fact with their grip, they can inadvertently keep the slide from locking to the rear depending on where their grip's at. So they have to make sure they get their thumbs well away from the slide release. I noticed that when I passed it to some different shooters the other day in a class. Very accurate pistol. In fact, I've never shot an HK handgun that wasn't accurate. The other downside to the gun, the bore line's a little bit higher than it should be. It's much along the line of the Walther PPQ and definitely dramatically higher than the one on the Glock 17. However, because the barrel comes farther out of battery before it drops down out of the slide, it does have less muzzle flip than you might think, despite the fact that the bore line's higher. So really in felt recoil and muzzle flip, it's very comparable to the Glock 17 with a slight edge going to the Glock. The thing I like about the VP9 probably more than anything else is the trigger. In my opinion, it has the best of all the striker-fired handguns on the market. And keep in mind, it's a single action trigger, not a double action style trigger like a Glock. So it's fully cocked, and when you release the trigger, it's releasing a fully cocked striker. However, in terms of take-up, length of pull, over travel, and reset, I think it's superior to even the excellent trigger that's on the Walther PPQ. If anything, however, the Walther PPQ trigger is a little bit lighter than the VP9, but overall trigger feel and trigger dynamics, I prefer the VP9. Last but not least, it has the charging assist in the rear, which is more or less a polymer piece that's underneath the rear sight. It has the same sights as the P30 or the HK45, so there's aftermarket sights already on the market to replace them in case you don't like what comes from the factory. All things being equal, compared to an out-of-the-box Glock 17 and an out-of-the-box Walther PPQ for roughly $100 to $150 more than a Glock 17, the HK VP9 is probably the best out-of-the-box striker-fired handgun on the market today.